Welcome back to the Intel Focus, the review series. We are back strong after a nice long break.
It's great to be back.
Today, we're diving deep into something pretty incredible. The return of NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams.
Yeah, their story is fascinating.
Remember they were supposed to be on like a quick 8-day mission, right, up to the International Space Station back in June.
That was the plan.
But things took a bit of a turn. Ended up being more like 9 months.
A slight change of plans.
A slight change of plans is right. And the culprit. Some unexpected hiccups with the Boeing Starliner spacecraft, the one they're supposed to use to come home. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack exactly what happened during their extended stay, why they were up there so much longer than planned, and of course, what that return to Earth actually involved. I think it's a great example of resilience and the complexities of space travel.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it going from an 8-day mission to 9 months. Talk about adapting to the unexpected. It really highlights the inherent risks and unpredictability of space travel. Even with all the experience NASA and its partners have, sometimes things just don't go as planned.
Right. And this situation, it really brings to light just how crucial contingency planning is in space travel. And of course, the incredible adaptability both of the astronauts and the teams supporting them back on Earth.
For sure.
So let's start with their return journey. Sounds like a wild ride. Reports describe the SpaceX capsule's re-entry as fast and fiery, which, I mean, makes sense when you think about the speeds involved.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, those parachutes deployed, and we got reports of a, quote, gentle splashdown off the coast of Florida.
Much better than a rough one.
I'd imagine. And get this, there was even a pod of dolphins circling the craft as it bobbed in the water. Almost poetic, isn't it?
That is pretty cool. It's a nice reminder that all this incredible technology we're talking about, it's all happening within our planet's own natural environment.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so after the splashdown, the recovery ship came in, lifted the capsule out of the water, and there were Butch and Suni beaming, waving as they were helped out.
Always a great sight.
Now, it was also mentioned that astronaut Nick Hague and cosmonaut Alexander Gorbunov, they were also present at the scene. Our sources didn't go into too much detail about their specific roles in the recovery process.
I see.
But their presence definitely adds another layer to the whole picture. Then, a 17-hour journey back to Houston after that. Can you even imagine?
17 hours. That's a long ride.
Well, it's likely that Nick and Alexander being there speaks to the collaborative nature of the International Space Station program. Even if they weren't the ones in the capsule, you know, the space community, it's very tight-knit. They might have been offering support to their fellow astronauts, maybe assisting with initial safety checks, or even being part of the bigger operational team involved in the recovery. And yeah, that 17-hour trip back to Houston, it just shows that the physical return, that's just the first step. There's a whole process of readjustment and debriefing that follows. Makes sense. One of the most striking images was seeing Butch and Suni being helped onto stretchers.
Ah, yes.
Might have looked a little concerning if you didn't know the context.
Right?
But apparently that's pretty standard procedure after spending so long in a weightless environment.
It is. You've got to remember, after months in microgravity, the human body goes through some pretty big adaptations. Muscles weaken because they aren't working against gravity as much. The cardiovascular system adjusts to that reduced gravitational pull. So coming back to Earth's gravity all at once, that can be a real shock to the system. Issues with balance, blood pressure, that kind of thing. So the stretchers help ensure a safe and gradual transition back to Earth's gravity. Gives their bodies time to start getting used to it again.
It's almost like having to learn to walk again.
It's not quite that extreme, but you get the idea.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit.
Yeah.
Figure out why their stay ended up being 9 months instead of 8 days.
Sounds good.
So the core of the mission back in June was this test flight of the Boeing Starliner, right? A short crewed mission. What exactly happened with that initial phase that led to this?
Well, it's important to remember this was the very first crewed test flight for the Starliner. And during its trip to the ISS, it ran into a few technical snags. Our sources didn't delve into the nitty-gritty details.
Sure.
But the main takeaway was this. Both NASA and Boeing, their top priority is safety, of course, and they decided it was just too risky to use the Starliner to bring Butch and Suni back home. In spaceflight, you can't compromise on safety, even if it means pushing back the schedule.
Of course, safety first. And speaking of the Starliner, it did eventually make it back to Earth, right?
It did.
Uncrewed, though.
Yes. In early September. Successfully, I might add.
Be so good to hear.
It was a confirmation that the spacecraft could operate. But it also reinforced the decision to not use it for the astronauts' return, Those technical issues were serious enough to warrant a totally different plan, a cautious approach, putting the crew's well-being above, sticking to the original mission.
I respect that. So if the Starliner was off the table, how did Butch and Suni eventually get home?
Well, this is where the space program's flexibility and the partnership with SpaceX really came into play. NASA turned to a scheduled SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule. It was already on its way to the ISS in late September. And here's the thing, this particular flight, it only had 2 astronauts on board.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a 6-month mission for them, so that meant there were 2 empty seats on the return trip.
Perfect timing.
Right.
Yeah.
It provided a safe, reliable, already planned way to get Butch and Suni back.
So essentially, this SpaceX flight, planned for a 6-month mission, became their ride home, adding those extra months to Butch and Suni's stay in space.
Exactly, and I think it's a great example of how interconnected everything is in space exploration. All these missions, they're all part of a larger web.
Mhm.
And when one thing goes wrong, you can often find solutions by looking at what else is going on.
Absolutely. It really shows how adaptable the space program can be, and the ingenuity involved in overcoming unforeseen obstacles. Now, let's talk about life on the ISS during that extended stay. I know some reports use the word stranded, but it's important to remember they always had options for an emergency return, whether it was a Soyuz or a Dragon capsule docked to the station.
That's a crucial point. The ISS is always equipped with spacecraft that can act as lifeboats if there's a need for a quick evacuation. So while Butch and Suni's planned return was delayed, they weren't without options. The safety measures are built right into the station's protocols.
And they weren't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs during that extra time.
Oh, absolutely not.
They were busy conducting experiments, even doing spacewalks, and incredibly, Suni Williams actually broke a pretty significant record during that time.
Yeah, she did. It's amazing how these extended missions really push the boundaries of what we can learn. That additional time on the ISS meant more in-depth research across various fields. And for Suni, breaking that record for cumulative hours spent outside the station by a female astronaut, that's a huge accomplishment. It speaks to her expertise and the critical nature of spacewalks for maintaining and upgrading the station.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the technical aspects and forget there's a human side to all this. One detail that stuck with me was how the crew celebrated Christmas in orbit.
Oh yeah, I read about that.
Santa hats, reindeer antlers, the whole 9 yards. But then you remember they were supposed to be home with their families for the holidays.
And it adds a layer of complexity, doesn't it?
Hmm.
It shows that even in such an extraordinary environment, they still hold on to those familiar traditions and personal connections. It reminds us of the sacrifices that astronauts and their families make.
For sure. We also got some insightful quotes from NASA personnel. Steve Stitch said the crew was doing great, which is reassuring. And Joel Montalbano praised their resilience and flexibility in handling this unusual situation. He also gave a shout out to SpaceX for being a great partner in bringing them home.
Those quotes speak volumes about the teamwork and spirit within the space community. They highlight the astronauts' ability to roll with the punches and the successful collaboration between NASA and its partners like SpaceX.
Okay, so they're back on Earth. Now what?
Now the real work begins.
So I've heard. What's the process of readjusting to life back on Earth actually look like? They were headed to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, right? For a whole battery of medical checks.
Exactly. Those checkups are crucial after any long-duration mission. The body goes through a lot in space. The source mentioned bone density loss, muscle atrophy, because they're not working against gravity. There can also be changes to the circulatory system, and even their eyesight can be affected by fluid shifts. All of this needs to be carefully monitored and managed. They'll have personalized rehab programs to help them get back to normal.
It sounds like it takes quite a while for the body to fully acclimate back to Earth's gravity. The article mentioned an extensive exercise regime as part of that.
It does take time. Think about it. They've been living in an environment where things float, where their bodies don't have to work as hard. So those muscles need to be rebuilt, bone density needs to be restored, and the cardiovascular system has to relearn how to work properly under gravity. It's a gradual process, and they'll be working closely with medical and rehab specialists to get back to 100%.
I remember reading a quote from British astronaut Tim Peake about this. He described it as feeling like a holiday at first, because you're not constantly fighting gravity. But then, he said, the punishing gravity environment sets in. And that's why those exercise routines in space are so vital. They're preparing for that return to Earth.
Tim Peake's insight is invaluable. He's been there, done that. And his description of those early days back on Earth being punishing, it really highlights how tough the transition can be. It's a reminder that those workouts in space, they're not just for staying fit up there, but for prepping for the challenges of coming home.
It's also important to remember the personal side of things. Helen Sharman pointed out that Butch and Suni will now have the chance to catch up on all those family celebrations they missed. Christmas, birthdays, all of that.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the scientific achievements, but we can't forget the human aspect. Being separated from loved ones, missing those milestones, is part of the story too. Those reunions and belated celebrations will be very special.
In an interview with CBS, Suni Williams talked about what she was looking forward to most. And it was simple things. Seeing her family and dogs jumping in the ocean just to feel Earth again.
That's beautiful. It speaks to that primal connection we have with our planet. After experiencing the wonders and isolation of space, those simple earthly joys become even more precious.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Our deep dive into Butch and Suni's extended stay in space. A mission that was supposed to last 8 days turned into 9 months because of technical difficulties. Their safe return was a testament to the adaptability of the space program and the partnership with SpaceX.
Right.
They continued doing important work on the ISS, even breaking records, showing resilience and flexibility in the face of the unexpected. And now they begin the challenging journey of readapting to life on Earth.
It's a remarkable story, and it highlights something crucial about space exploration.
What's that?
The need to be adaptable, to be resourceful, to be able to solve problems on the fly. When things go wrong, as they inevitably will in such a complex environment, everyone involved needs to be able to think on their feet, work together, and come up with creative solutions. This whole situation, from the Starliner issues to utilizing the SpaceX capsule, it's a case study in innovation and flexibility.
And that leads us to our final thought for today. Think about those incredible levels of adaptability and problem solving we've discussed. How might this experience shape future long-duration missions? How will it influence contingency planning? And on a deeper level, what does this tell us about our capacity as humans to adapt, to persevere, even in the most extreme and unpredictable environments?
It's something to ponder for sure.
Until next time.
See you then.